marriage was transitioning into separation and then eventual divorce. And then I do have 2 kids. And what I learned through going to the gym and being with the Tone Today community is that as I was learning to physically lift heavier things, I also realized that I was able to carry heavier emotional things. And then I was also able to learn how to feel what that was like, and then also to let go of the things that no longer served me. And, through that process back, I guess first, my mom passed away in 2016. And then around that same time, I started paying attention to, like, oh, am I really feeling things, or am I numbing things? Because I don't want to feel those uncomfortable emotions. And I started to notice that I had a whole menu of ways that I could numb. I could numb with food. I could numb with alcohol. I could numb with shopping. I could numb with attention seeking. It was a variety of things. I'm like, okay, well, what do I really want to get out of this? And part of that questioning came about was because I've been working as a health coach since 2006. And I have had thousands and thousands of conversations. And I mean that literally, because I work as a corporate health coach. So every day on our calendar, I could have anywhere between 15 to 30 coaching calls. So I'm talking to a lot of people. And the theme of emotions come up, especially emotional eating. And now we are in a new uncertain time that's filled with unlimited possibilities within a container of there are only so many things we can do. So it's a very interesting time. So emotional eating is coming up even more on my coaching calls. And so I'm really grateful to be able to connect with you all today to say, I know everybody's circumstances is different, and yet we are all in this together. And I think there is so much power when we can say, we are in this together. You don't have to carry a load all on your own. And then we can figure out those strategies. And so I'm just going to share with you kind of my mindset for coaching, some of the success strategies that I've learned from my most successful clients. And then if you'll play along, we'll do a little relaxation exercise, and then I'll transition back over to Andrea, where she can go even deeper with what she has gathered from her years of expertise. And then I think we'll also have time to open it up for some discussion. Is that okay? Maybe head nods, waves, thumbs up. Okay, great. So when I think about emotional eating, I think about it from 2 sides. We can look at it from the very literal emotional eating, like I'm eating my feelings, or how we joke around with that. The other way to look at it is, how am I eating, or how am I nourishing myself emotionally? And one moves us closer to our goals, one moves us further away. And then we just want to notice and bring awareness to where we are in that balance. And so today I'm going to focus a little bit more on the second piece of it, of how can we nourish ourselves emotionally, that then the output of that is even more peace within our eating styles. And I want to invite you that this is a safe place where we can talk about what's really going on. And I invite you to just use a lot of self-compassion. What I've learned from years of coaching is that every behavior has a positive intent. And in the past, where if we've been choosing food instead of feeling an uncomfortable emotion, it's simply a tool that helped us navigate through that time. And it got you where you are today. And that's exactly where you're meant to be. And now from this point, you have the power to learn even more tools, and then make the choice of how often you want to use that old tool, or maybe you want to experiment with some new things. And today I'm going to tell you three things that have been working really well for my clients that you can experiment with and then tailor, to see if they're helpful for you. So what I've learned from my clients is that when it comes to emotional eating, the most powerful skill is not the not eating when you're stressed, but rather, or whatever other uncomfortable emotion, but it's really fully feeling the feeling that's coming up, that feeling that you would be feeling if you weren't eating. I don't know how we were not taught how to feel feelings in school. I coach people from 18 years old to literally, I coach someone who was 91. I have not heard of anybody that has been taught how to feel feelings. I'm 40. I was not taught how to feel feelings. And yet, that is where the magic is. And what's really powerful is that when we learn to feel feelings, we can look at it from a neutral state of sensation in the body instead of the story that we tell about the feeling. Does that make sense to separate the two between a story of what happened and a sensation in the body? I'll have an exercise that might make that a little bit more clear. So when we think of an emotion is a vibration in the body that's the result of a neurochemical release in our brain. Neurotransmitters are released as a result of a thought that could be conscious or unconscious. And then it takes about 90 seconds for that emotional wave to complete. Now we're like, what, like if I'm angry, I know I'm angry for longer than 90 seconds. So that doesn't really make sense. But from a pure biochemical perspective, it's 90 seconds. What happens is that we keep replaying that single event that triggered the neurochemical release. We keep reactivating it with our thoughts, which keeps that emotion alive, which then affects our behavior and our results. And so if we can step away or step outside as a witness and make it more neutral, we can help our body calm down. So as an example of this is, you can, if you want to close your eyes or keep them open, whatever feels best for you, think about a time, a recent memory that's, or maybe even a farther away memory that's really brought you joy. Think about that memory, go into it with your full body. Notice what you see, notice what you feel, notice what you hear. Is there a scent to it? And from this place of joy, notice where you feel joy in your body. Maybe you rest a hand on it. Maybe you notice it's a smile on your face. Maybe it's a warmness in your chest. Where does joy live in your body? If it had a color, what color would it be? Does it have a temperature? Is it cool? Is it warm? Is there a weight to it? Is it heavy? Is it light? Does it move? Does your breathing change when you feel joy? Now, from that place of joy and knowing where it is in your body, you can come back to this present moment. And would anybody like to share? You can either unmute or you can put it in the chat or you can just touch. Like where does joy live in your body? Where did you feel it? Yeah. In your heart, in your face? Yeah.
I can share.
Yeah, Andrea, please share.
For me, and I want to also put something in chat. She said her heart, and that would be me as well. So I thought of a time when Miles and I were playing, and we're just having like goofy time. Like that to me is like the highest amazing. I mean, I just love it. I was like throwing him under my legs. We were making up a dance for TikTok. Like that was such a great, and I can just expand my breathing slowed, just joy. So, and it's all here. But when it's heavy, it's
Yeah.
also all here. So
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah. And that would be so interesting to be curious that next time notice if the heaviness is the same, what else is different? Is there a difference in temperatures or different in movement? Like you can get curious about that. Yeah. Lana mentioned it was in her heart. Yeah. Anyone else want to share? Okay.
I would say mine is heart and my face, smiling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Face
Yeah.
definitely lights up with that. Great.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kara, my go-to is always just remembering how I guess when the kids were little, they used to belly laugh a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's my
That
go-to.
that full body laugh. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Did anybody notice? Oh, and shoulders feel light. Yes, Michelle. Yeah, that weight coming off of your shoulders. Absolutely. Yeah. And who noticed that when they were in their body, they didn't have thought loops going on in their brain? Who noticed that? Yeah. Great. So, what we did there, when we took an emotion and went into the body, we created a pattern interrupt in the brain and we disrupted a thought loop. And we did that on purpose by activating an empowered emotion. We can do the same thing and get a powerful response if we are feeling an uncomfortable emotion, or maybe we're not even sure what it is. But we can pause and say, okay, wait, what am I feeling in my body? It might be a tightness in the gut. It might be a heaviness on the shoulder. We might notice our breath is up in our chest. You can notice those sensations from a neutral position as a witness. You can notice in your body. It's even more powerful as you're noticing, you write it down. Because then we move the thought loop of those thoughts that are creating the emotion, we tap into our body. And then if we decide to write it on paper, you've created a channel to move that emotion out so that we don't have to replay. And once you move that emotion through, it's going to create even more space so that you can make an empowered choice and make that decision. Do I want to eat that food that I was going to go to? Do I want to sit quietly? Do I want to have a conversation that needs to be had? Do I want to do something else? All what you're doing as you move that from your head to your body to paper, you create more space. How helpful is that? So thank you for the thumbs up. I love that we can do reactions on Zoom now. Yes. So that's the first thing that my successful clients do. They notice their emotions from a neutral space and they notice how it feels in their body. This is also why exercise and movement is so powerful. When we change our physiology, we change our psychology. It can also be as simple as getting up, moving to a different room, getting up, shaking your body, go sit in a dark closet. I don't care what you have to do, just to shake that up. So that's the first one. The second thing my successful clients have been doing is with nourishing their mind, they are curating specifically what they are feeding their minds right now. That means looking at social media, unfollowing people, or defriending them, or just muting them, whatever you have to do. You are in charge of your social media, curate it, limiting exposure to news, picking the 1, 2, 3 reliable sources that you count on. It could be World Health Organization, it could be CDC, it could be your local state department, it could be some other source that you value. Only looking at those resources, giving yourself a time limit so that you are informed and can make responsible choice, but you do not bring worry into the equation. Worry is not an essential ingredient for preparation right now. Curate that. You also have permission to curate your conversations. If people are coming to you with their worries and their fears, it is okay to say, right now, for my own mental health, I'm not discussing that topic, but I would love to hear what you're reading right now. Tell me what you're doing for fun. Have you heard any great music lately? What are you doing? We can curate our conversations. And then curate the books, the music, the TV shows. Put up things in your environment that is good for you, that's appealing, that nourishes you. Wear clothes that make you feel good. When you're making your meals, fill it full of colors that are pleasing to your eye. When we're nourishing our brain with things that truly feel good, it settles the cortisol, it settles the stress response, it settles the fight or flight so that we don't go seeking it from food. Because comfort foods like carbohydrates and sugary sweets, yes, it lowers the cortisol, it helps us de-stress, but then there's a rebound effect that you are going to hit an even higher fight or flight response afterwards. So we want to think about future self. How is future self going to feel in 1 to 2 hours when we're making those choices? So giving you permission to curate what is coming into your brain right now. And if you are at home with other humans, it's also okay to wear noise canceling headphones. I do that often. I was talking to Sarah the other day. I'm in La La Land right now because my kids are at their dad's, but they come back tomorrow and we're full force. I am working from home full time and homeschooling. I have no idea what that looks like, but my kids know that oftentimes I will have noise canceling headphones on, or I will go sit in my closet, or I will get in the car and I will drive around the block listening to a podcast that's inspiring for me. You are the thermostat in whatever room you're in. You're responsible for your energy, and you have permission to take care of yourself first. And I'm standing my ground on that. I will not budge. You are that important. Okay, off soapbox, but it was an important soapbox. And the last tool that has been super helpful for people that I'm coaching, it's called soft belly breathing. Somewhere at some point in time, somebody decided that as women, we are all supposed to have tiny, small tummies. Genetically, I kind of have one, so I'm not trying to whatever, that's just genetics. But we were taught that it's not okay for our belly to be full and be relaxed. And yet when we breathe into our belly and soften our belly, it's the most relaxing, healing thing that we can do. And so I want to teach you an exercise, if it's okay today, that you can do. It's highly effective if you can do it 3 to 5 minutes, 3 to 5 times per day. Nobody needs to know that you're doing it. With soft belly breathing, you can rest a hand on your belly if you want. If you want to close your eyes, that's fine. If you want to leave them open, that's okay too. You can just lower them into a soft gaze. When we start, not quite yet, we're going to inhale through our nose and we're going to exhale through pursed lips as if you're blowing into a baby's ear. Okay, so we're going to inhale all the way into the belly and exhale through those lips. Inhale, thinking to yourself, soft. And exhale through your lips, thinking belly. Inhale. Exhale. And as you settle into this rhythm of soft belly breathing, inhale. Exhale. Know that you are lowering your heart rate. You are lowering your blood pressure. You are turning off the fight or flight response. You are turning on your ability to focus. You are activating even more compassion for yourself and others. You're improving your ability to sleep deeply. You're improving your ability to make high quality decisions. And you are improving your ability to connect with others. And the soft belly breathing is available to you at any time. And I encourage you to practice this breathing a few times a day, especially when you're already feeling calm. If you practice this when you are already feeling calm, it will be easier to access in heightened states of awareness. And now that you're feeling even more relaxed, I invite you to sit up straight in your chairs, elongate your spine, knowing that you do not have to remember everything that we talk about on this call, but exactly what you are meant to hear and learn will be retained by your subconscious mind, whose highest intention is to take impeccable care of you. And with this new state of calm, I'll transition over to Andrea, who can share even more wisdom, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kara. That was amazing. I'm feeling very relaxed. Okay, so I've read so much stuff about breathing and meditation and been through that journey myself over the last couple of years. And it's just profound to me how quickly we can change everything just by doing breath work. Like a lot of times I'll spend a lot of money on, or I used to in the past, spend like tons of money on, coaching and programs and retreats. And I want to say like the number one thing that has worked for me and I've seen work for others is just like you said, taking those couple of times throughout the day to connect to the breath and then watching everything calm. And obviously exercise does that as well. And I think that's why I initially was so drawn to exercise. I couldn't put a word with it, but it was different from my normal routine. I felt better. Things seemed better to me. I could calm down, and it, brought me more presence. So I'm just going to show you guys a quick. I don't really want to overwhelm you. I feel like what Kara shared today has been so amazing. Mine is just a tiny bit different, where I'm going to talk about changing the story. And so I think that's what Kara, talked about, is we all have stories. And so this is, just kind of how to go on that next deeper level. But again, get out of it what you can and take what you need and then leave the rest. So if you're going to take one or two things that Kara, has said today and start implementing them, perfect. That's amazing. And if you take one or two things that I'm going to teach, awesome. So there is no right or wrong. And so I'll just kind of touch on this. I feel like one of the biggest struggles that I see, though, is women, emotionally eating or more of that addictive eating, like I talked about in the beginning. It's not that we don't know how to eat healthy or what is healthy, but, we are stressed and we're eating to calm ourselves versus looking at it to fuel our body. So when I was a kid, I would come home from school and my dad, a lot of you know my story, some of you don't, but just real briefly, my dad was an alcoholic and my mom, she struggled with mental illness. And so a lot of things like we couldn't talk about. And like Kara said, I was never taught how to have emotions. I was always taught to give more care and to give more and do more, and to calm my mom down and to, not give away my dad's drinking secrets. And so when I went to school, it was a lot of like hiding, pretending I wasn't who I was. I didn't want anyone to know about the struggles at home or that I might be different, because I always felt really different. And so when I would come home from school, it would be like this letdown of stress. When you're not being yourself or you're hiding something, that takes a lot of energy. And so I had all this energy all day long going out trying not to be me. And I'd come home and I'd eat, anything and everything I could find. And so that was a pattern for me. And so, like Kara said, my brain made pathways and patterns that was how you de-stressed, and that was okay. And so it did calm me down for the moment, but after a while I started to gain weight. I remember in high school getting asked, like, how much do you weigh? These boys at lunch asked, a couple of the girls, and I had this tall, skinny girlfriend, and she said, I weigh 125. And I said, I weigh 125 too. And I was honestly about 150 pounds. I'd gained a lot in ninth grade from eating too much. And they started laughing and saying, oh my gosh, no way. Andrea's way fatter than that. And it kind of started this whole like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to be perfect and hide myself as it is. Now here I am exposed. And so I had this emotional eating issue. Plus, I needed to lose weight. So then it became a lot of unhealthy eating, years of that. So this is truly from my heart. Like, I used to be a huge emotional eater. So how did I get over it? Basically, I had to figure out, that there were those stories, and we don't even have to go back that far as I did and go as deep. Like, you can just be in your body and feel the emotions and start to think like, well, what was the thought that drove me to the fridge? Why am I standing here right now? And we kind of call that a bound nature story, when our subconscious is telling us to do something consciously that we don't want to do. And so the best way to understand it is to try to get outside of it, like she said, and observe it so that you're looking at it. So I could look at, like, okay, I'm stressed right now, or I'm feeling sad right now, and getting this food isn't necessarily going to get me to the end result. So I'm doing something, I'd have to slow down and process the feeling, process the thoughts, and give it a story. So my bound nature story, I gave it a name. So I would call it like Sam Scarce, because there's scarce resources, there's too much stress, there's not going to be food later, things like that. And so then Sam Scarce does a lot of things that don't really align with the person that I want to be now. And so that was a way for me to get outside and look at my behaviors and observe it. So that's one way you can do it. And what it does is it brings me back to a free nature state. So even if I'm feeling, sad or bad or even good and want to eat, I get to decide what action I want to take. And I have a little more time to sit with the feeling instead of eating right away and then feeling bad later. And so another way to get closer to who you are and what some of your bound nature stories are and get into free nature is to do more breath work, thinking of things that you're grateful for. So in this moment, I'm not overweight. I don't have to eat to make myself feel better. And so I can be grateful for my health and grateful for my family. And there's so many things to kind of get me to that higher state so that I'm feeling more free. And so then I don't necessarily want to eat as much anymore. So our truth is basically our whole perception. So we have the ability to change our stories, except that life is truly an illusion. So, I didn't have to eat to deal with stress when I was younger. I didn't, but I chose that. And so I started to make a story around that. Stress equals eating, makes you feel better. But as soon as I got to see that, then I could start to change it and make different choices and create a new story. So that's the whole idea, is that your bound nature story doesn't have to be followed any longer. You can choose new choices. So some of the effects, that come out of the emotional eating, is weight gain, low energy, having more anxiety, inflammation, losing 10 pounds, gain it back later, And that's where, when we can start to understand that we are a fit person, we can, make different choices to deal with our feelings, feel the feelings, deal with the conflict, maybe take a walk, like she said, take a drive, go into a different room, journal it out. Then we can start to become that. And so when our internal self is healthy and feeling good and calm, we're going to make better choices. And so then we won't have that gain 10, lose it again. Things just become who we are. So there's 4 A's to combating your emotional eating. And so the first one is that awareness piece. So becoming aware, when you go to the fridge, what was the thought that kind of triggered your bound nature or to get there? And then simply just accepting it, like there's no good or bad thought, or there's no bad story, or, this just is, and that's okay. And then becoming accountable to it. So like I know that when I get really stressed or sad, instead of wanting to feel that emotion, or if I want to escape from who I am, then I want to eat. And it's not necessarily the foods that are good for me. They're the foods that I'm going to wake up the next morning and kind of not like myself for doing it. And so the more I can be accountable to that, the more that I can adapt and change that. And so awareness, I feel like, is the biggest change that you can make. And it starts with observing it. Thoughts, what are you hearing? Just like Kara said, like, what are your emotions? Like, are they negative? That's okay. Accept them, but maybe this has nothing to do with the situation you're in right now. So how can you start to emote to where you want to go? How do you feel physically? Is it in your heart center? Is it, tight in your chest? Like, are your hips tight? A lot of times we hold it through the shoulders, through the hips. That's a good signal that you're in some kind of story or bound nature role that you don't want to be in. And then what did you do? For me, I used to work too much. I would want to spend time with my family, but I'd end up working. And so that too came out of a scarcity role for me. And so if I noticed myself working too much and not taking time with the kids, I'd have to back up and say, what are my thoughts right now? What triggered this? And then I could decide, I don't want to be in this anymore. I don't have to. So it's a lot of information. So I'll keep it short, but there's 4 pillars of choices for us. We must be consistent in our thoughts and actions to create change. And so we must know what we're telling ourselves first before we can build on the good. We must call, BS on our stories and create new ones. And a big way to do this is journaling with 1 L and counting wins. So, what is going well? And so every night before bed, that's something that I'll do. Like maybe I didn't choose 100% the food choices I wanted, or, maybe I didn't work out the way that I had planned. And so that's okay. There were other things that went well that day, and I built up. Maybe they're really small. Maybe you just chose, lunch was very healthy and you felt really good. Build on that. That's amazing. You spent 10 minutes getting up to walk around, and you really felt good doing that. I spent a few minutes with the kids and it was positive. That's a win. Those all drive me closer to where we want to be. And that's going to come up in our body. Like even talking about it makes me feel excited. I get to change the story. And so that's a big part of it. So I have a fun, like limiting belief, freedom statements, free transformation gift pack that I want to email each of you. So I'll put that link in the chat box. And then I would like to, that's a lot of info from 2 people today, on how to change emotional eating. And it doesn't change overnight. And I think that's the whole kind of what we're saying is that, you have to work this, and get a little bit deeper. I was reading something yesterday about the splintered personality. So like a lot of times consciously we want to eat healthy. We want to stick with things. And so it's in our mind, and that's what we set on for Monday. but unconsciously there might be some negative beliefs about whether or not we're going to be able to do that. And so when our conscious is fighting our unconscious, usually the unconscious is going to win out, because we got about 6 seconds between conscious and unconscious. And so always the way to change that is to find out, like, well, do I really believe that I'm worthy of eating healthy? Or do I not want to outshine anyone? So that's why I continue to make bad habits and unhealthy choices for myself. Like, what is the deeper story that you were taught? And then once you can see that, it becomes like this freedom, because then we get to decide consciously what changes subconsciously we want to make. And then they start to work together. So we're not splintered anymore. We're a whole. So our soul and our personality are coming together and being who we want it to be. That's pretty deep. But anyway, I'm going to unmute. I would love for everyone to, let's just talk about it, and unmute yourself and let's discuss. And then I'll share that link in the chat box too. I can't unmute you. Let me see if I can stop my share. There we go.
A lot of info.
Info overload. I know. I was like, whoa, that PowerPoint's a little much. But yeah, just curious if anyone started kind of thinking like, yeah, that makes sense, or is that just a little way too much on my end?
Just something you got to be conscious of, and can do that going forward, to think about it. And I like the breathing. Your meditation, Andrea, this week has been awesome. I like that stuff, and my people don't do that kind of stuff. So I've had a lot of alone time, so I've been able to tap into that a little bit more. And I like that avenue. I like doing that. So I'm going to hone in on that this next week and think about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's how it all started for me, I think, is just, yeah, like I thought I was perfect, which was kind of funny. When I signed up for my mindset course, I thought, well, I work out, I'm pretty positive. And then I realized, like, this positivity in me, this good in me, was hiding a ton of stuff, and it was super subconscious. And so for me to kind of start realizing, like, well, I want to achieve all this and it has to be perfect, realize I have a whole other avatar in me that's not me. And the more I could let that go, I could just become myself. And so it was really eye-opening. And so I felt really bad for a little while. And then the more, though, I faced myself and gave myself some time and some patience and some love, the more I could accept who I really was. And then all of the food stuff just started to quiet. And now it is just who I am. Like, I just don't have desire. And if I do, it's very small, just kind of like, yeah, okay, I don't need that food right now. I'll have a cup of tea, or, but it used to be all the time. Like, that would be what I lived for. That's how I got through family events. That's how I got through, like, my weekend, that was a celebration, was eating bad. So that's why I think I exercise a ton. So.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Lots of new concepts. They're great. I've never thought about it that way. So really